Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 52 of 2024. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media / the Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by This Season. For the largest amount of entries in football contests in all of America, please visit the szn.com/OB for an extra $10 off your bundled contest rates. If you like support the Odds Breakers and benefit from our premium plays, please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. Pick any for winning cappers to get their premium plays before the line moves. You can also support us on patreon.com. And if nothing else, please visit the Odds Breakers and become a free picks and Telegram subscriber. The NFL, baby, it is back this week with the Hall of Fame preseason game. But, let's be honest, the hype's a little bit more higher than the actual game itself. That's probably the worst preseason game to watch from a football standpoint out of really any of them. I think both teams usually want to get the heck out of there, and that's why you're seeing a total of about 32 to 33 points. But anyway, we have Texans and Bears. We get to see a little bit of football, so I'm excited for that. And then preseason around the corner. I hope you just got the last podcast that we talked about preseason coaches and motivation. Very, very important stuff. And this episode, we're going to go right back into the NFL with a wonderful guest, Mr. Ross Tucker, a broadcaster in the NFL as well as college football. And we're going to break down some NFL season win totals and a few other things involving football. Can't wait to talk to Ross about that. But before Ross comes on, I want to go over a really bad weekend for me as far as the UFC. Now, thank goodness I went 2-0 in MLB on Saturday, but man, did I get smoked in the UFC. And I just underestimated a few. I underestimated Bruna Brasil, much better fighter than I expected. And she was a lot bigger than McCann. And I'll tell you this, as soon as she got in that ring and looked that confident, I was kind of like, uh-oh, I think I'm on the wrong side in this one. And unfortunately, I had two bets tied to her with the parlay and the McCann inside the distance. Well, McCann got kicked so hard in the liver that I'm not even sure how she even showed up for the second round. That was tough to watch. And, it ruined two bets for me. My Marcin Prachnio bet, I guess he got subbed in the third. I honestly was driving during that fight. I had to go somewhere with my family, and I missed that one, but I just looked at the stats and saw that Marcin outstruck him 2-1, like 120 strikes to like 60 or 70, but just ended up getting caught in the third round. So I'm not completely sure. I wasn't on the right side, wrong result type situation here when I had some plus money on him. So that was tough. The Blades fight, the ref stopped that fight so fast that I don't even think Blades came out of that thing with even a mark on his face. He went down and he was slow to get up, but Aspinall was just kind of these little taps on the side of the head. And as Blades is getting up, it's like, how do you stop the fight there? He's not knocked out. I mean, Blades didn't really complain. And to me, Blades really just didn't feel like he wanted to be there anyway, so I think I probably would have lost that anyway, and Aspinall would have eventually knocked him out in the first round anyway. Huge props to Brian Edwards, who gave that play away last week on one of our shows. And so Lou and I were just on the wrong side where we thought the fight was going to start in round 2. And then I went small on Edwards thinking he was going to win the 4th or 5th round, and man, did Edwards just get wrestled that whole time. And I knew Muhammad could wrestle. I didn't know he could wrestle that good, though. And Muhammad is now the true champion of the welterweight division. And huge congrats to Bilal Muhammad. He's been waiting for this opportunity, and he took advantage. And Edwards, came in a little fat and happy. Too long being a champ without having to defend that title. And, it's a situation where he just couldn't get up. He was caught in the body triangle for like 3 of the rounds, and you're not going to get any points that way. Muhammad played it right, and he was able to throw Edwards around because Edwards just could not balance his body leverage on that. He couldn't get his center gravity low enough for Muhammad to not be able to take him and toss him around like that. And that was a little bit embarrassing for Edwards, but now I'm just very curious who's next for this division. And I would assume it's going to be Kamaru Usman next, or Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think you give Shavkat a fight, right? And then maybe have Usman come in and try to get his title back. But, Jack Della's kind of creeping up there, but I'm not sure his wrestling's good enough to be in the top of this. Ian Gary's obviously making a ton of noise. And if he can get through a bad wrestling situation like Bilal Muhammad would give him, or Shavkat Rakhmonov would give him, then Ian Gary could be a true contender. Gilbert Burns a little bit long in the tooth, probably not in that competitive top spot, or Colby Covington either. So those are the guys that I think will probably be next for Bilal Muhammad. But anyways, it was a great event to watch, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Just was a really rough 7.5 point loser to me. But very excited for preseason football, and you can get our packages at theoddsbreakers.com, or you can get our fully guaranteed package where you get your money back, 100% money back if you're not winning in the first month. We go score it from the 1st all the way through the 30th of each month, just to make sure that we are profitable. If we were not profitable, we are paying you back your money. And anything after that's half the money back. We are putting our money where our mouth is in our premium insider package, where you'll also get all my algorithms that I have out, as well as the power ratings and all of the predicted spreads of what they should be at theoddsbreakers.com. So make sure you check that out. If not, and you just want to get the plays when I make them, which proved to be the most profitable because we beat the line moves. I'm making plays Sunday, Monday. When it comes to football, you can get my personal package at theoddsbreakers.com. Use football24 promo code to get 50% off. Now, let's bring in our wonderful guest from Westwood One and the Even Money Podcast, Mr. Ross Tucker. Now I'm very excited to welcome back a former NFL player, current NFL broadcaster, and host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and Ross Tucker from rosstucker.com and Westwood One. You can find all of those great shows and follow Ross on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. This segment was brought to you by Circus Sports. For the best football contest in all the land, please visit circusports.com/contest for over 16 million in guaranteed prizes, getting Circa Millions and Circus Survivor. Ross, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Are you ready for some football, my man?
Heck yeah. You know, it's so funny. I know when you have me on that we're going to talk season win totals and that the season's just about coming. I feel like this is an annual thing right around August 1st, right around this month, every time where we get together. So looking forward to it, man. Let's do it.
Dude, I appreciate it. And yes, it is, man. I'm starting to get the itch, especially because my Cubbies aren't so good, It's not like it's getting me through August right now with baseball, when that happens and they're not good, I get the itch even quicker. But here we are talking some football. But before we get into that, man, I know you're involved in this place called myfrontpage.com. I mean, it seems like a really cool gift idea. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, honestly, man, my buddy started the company. It's the best gift I've ever seen. I've seen so many. I got one, my sister and I got one for my mom now. You really just talk to a writer for, 10, 15 minutes while you're driving to work, or you can fill out an email if you'd rather do that. Tell them how great your mom is, or your wife, or whoever, right? Any loved one, anybody you want to get a gift for. They write this unbelievable story, Kiev. You know what? In fact, I got it right here. It's funny. While we're talking, this is what it looks like.
Oh,
it's like
man.
It's on the cover of the newspaper. It's framed pictures of her and kids or grandkids or whatever you want to put on there. So I tell people now, you should absolutely, at a minimum, go to myfrontpagestory.com and throw your email address in there so that you get the 20% discount. And then, they'll send you an email before Valentine's Day or before Mother's Day. Well in advance, so you don't forget, you don't blow those holidays. It's called myfrontpagestory.com. They pretty much cry every time they get – I've seen people get these gifts. And just to see them, reading quotes from family members about them. It's really pretty awesome.
What an awesome idea. I'm definitely going to try that. It's such like a heartfelt thing. And sometimes you're like, man, I just can't figure out what to buy this person. And then I think this thing can fit for anybody that you love. So
Love it.
That sounds awesome. Well, hey man, let's talk a little football here. It's crazy. I see this offseason, right? And I see guys like Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence getting these massive contracts, and they're paid more than Patrick Mahomes. What is going on with these contracts? Do you agree with this type of, market that the NFL's throwing out there?
Well, so it's so interesting because sometimes I wonder, Kiev, what the market really is, right? I talked about this on the latest Ross Tucker football podcast and actually posted it on social media, or my producer did, 440 at Ross Tucker Pod. I think Jordan Love would have significant more interest on the open market than Tua Tagovailoa. Significantly more interest. I don't know about you, but if he was on the open market, I mean, you're talking about a guy that can do it all. He's got a big arm. We saw the way he played late in the year. I think the perception, Kiev, right or wrong, okay, is that Tua got the injury history, right? I didn't know if this would ever even happen for him, Kiev, right? Yeah. I mean, the hip dislocation at Alabama, the multiple concussions a couple years ago for the Dolphins. So I'm thrilled for Tua and his family. I mean, I can't tell you how happy I am for him and his family, but because of that injury history, and because of the perception that he is sort of I don't think system quarterback's the right word. I think he's a timing and rhythm passer that needs to operate in a highly schemed offense like Mike McDaniel and have receivers like Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think I just wonder, if he was on the open market, Kiev, how many teams would really be all over giving Tua $55 million a year? I don't know the answer to that. I think it makes sense for the Dolphins to keep him, but I'm not sure. Whereas Jordan Love, I think Jordan Love, people just think is very gifted, could operate in any offense, and I think there'd be a bunch of teams that would be lined up to give him that much money. That's the difference in my mind between those two guys.
Yeah, and good points. And you're right. We don't know, or I don't know what a quarterback's really worth. I know it's a lot more, but isn't it kind of weird? And this is a different way of looking at it. But if you're just that journeyman, linebacker or even a receiver that's like a third-round pick, and the quarterback's not living up to the contract, I mean, doesn't that kind of turn a locker room a little bit quicker when you see some guy just getting paid? I almost feel like some of the middle guys don't get the chance to their second deal because quarterbacks are paid so high. They'd rather just keep people on rookie deals and roll dice. I mean, from that perspective, isn't the market, or isn't the system, I should say, a little bit out of whack because of that?
Well, they definitely, I feel like there's not very much of a middle class, right? It feels like the starters just keep getting more and more. The stars keep getting more and more, or the high-end starters, I should say, get more and more. The stars get more and more, and then everybody else seems like they're on like a rookie or minimum contract. There's not a lot of guys making between like $2 to $10 million a year. It's an interesting dynamic for sure. I mean, Kiev, when I played, I think guards were the lowest paid guys in the league.
Right.
I want to say maybe the average starting guard was like 1.2 to 1.5 million, something like that. Now I saw Landon Dickerson for the Eagles just got $21 million a year to play left guard. God bless him. I know Landon. He's awesome. He's a mountain of a man. He's a really good player, but that's very different from how it was back in the day. That's for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I guess we'll just have to find out where these three guys fall, when it comes to it. I feel Jordan do enough yet. I don't know. I feel like the injury concerns are true, and Trevor Lawrence, I don't think he did enough either, but yet he just his name and himself and his prowess from coming out of Clemson and what he did down there is probably a big reason behind that as well. But let's talk a little bit about some of the rule changes, because I'm interested to find from guys like you if this hip drop tackle is really going to get called during a game. It just feels like more arbitrary situations. And I'm also curious if this new kickoff is going to add definitely some field position, but maybe some more points.
I do not think the hip drop tackle is going to get called that much in real time. I think it's going to be litigated via fine afterwards. Hard to always tell when it happens in the moment. So I don't think that is a big concern or going to be a major issue, I would say. That'll be fined and guys won't be happy, but they're trying to make the game safer. The kickoff rule is interesting because nobody really knows how this is going to play out. The more people I talk to, the more I think, Yev, the projections right now are that the average starting position will be at the 28-29, which does mean more points because that's further than it has been, right? It's been below the 25.
Right.
So 28-29, that's more points. I think some special teams coordinators are going to say, you know what? I'm just kicking the touchback, give it to him 30. If on average we're only going to save a yard, I'm not taking the chance of getting my butt fired by them taking it to the house back-to-back weeks, and I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'd rather just blast away. And I think that's a pretty good chance that some of these teams will do that, especially early on till things, settle in a little bit.
Well, I wonder if there's going to be more returns just based upon them trying to hit that target between the 20 and the end zone and the goal line. So I was wondering about that. But is it easier for them to break one because everybody's starting with the 40? There's no guy kind of streaming back, to try to save, minus the kicker, right? To try to save that massive score that they could get from it. So I'm confused if it will be the 29. I know I heard you guys talking about it over at Even Money, but I'm thinking maybe the average could be the 31 or 32. So I'm just really intrigued to watch this a little bit and how it develops in the preseason, Ross.
Yeah, and I don't think there'll be that many that will be broken because there's not going to be as much space. It's almost more like a running play. You don't see a lot of those broken for really long runs. So I don't think that there will be a lot taken to the house.
Okay, good thoughts on that. We will monitor that throughout the preseason. But let's get in to some divisions and some of their win totals. And if you have a future bet, man, I'm more than happy to hear about that as well. And so is our listeners. But starting with the NFC North, you have Bears at 8.5. Pretty high total for the Bears at 9 in some books. Packers 9.5. Vikings are at 6.5. And the Lions are at 10.5. Anything you like in this division?
Yeah, so first of all, just programming note, I think the week after the last preseason game is when Steve Fezzik and I will do our official season win total bets on the Even Money podcast, which I know you listen to or watch, Kiev, and is really popular. So I have a month before my official bet, so I'll get a chance to see what injuries happen, and I'll get a chance to see how they look in the preseason. I would say that one that jumps out to me is actually the Chicago Bears. I think the expectations for them are a little high, and I like the under for the Chicago Bears. I don't think they're as good as the Detroit Lions or the Green Bay Packers, both of whom came in a whisker of beating the 49ers in the playoffs last year and looked impressive prior to going down against the Niners in those games. So I think the Lions and Packers are really pretty good. That already hurts the Bears. And no matter how much promise he has, he's still a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. He's still a rookie. He's still going to make some mistakes, maybe a lot of mistakes. And I know that they have a good defense and people like the skill guys that are around him. But I just think, things are a little bit skewed because of what C.J. Stroud did last year. I don't think Caleb Williams is going to do what C.J. Stroud did because I don't think any other rookie quarterback has ever done what C.J. Stroud did. I thought he was the best rookie quarterback we've ever seen. So that's one thing I look at when talking about the Bears for sure. I mean, if you're a Bears fan, you just hope he's not Bryce Young. You know, you hope he's as close to Stroud as possible. So the one that jumps out to me in the NFC North, Kiev, would be the Bears under. I think the other numbers are pretty good right now, but I would say the Bears under and maybe the Vikings under, depending on when they go to J.J. McCarthy, when they make that switch.
Yeah, and I don't disagree at all. And I say even find the 9 because they do have the easier schedule, but just getting to 10 wins would be just absolutely insane for this Bears team. And they don't even have a 4th place schedule; they have a 3rd place schedule, and the 9 is just much more of a safer bet, in my opinion. And I think it gets up there in most books, Ross, just due to the fact that they're going to be on Hard Knocks and all the hype that the media is going to be giving them as well. So I say you can probably wait on that. And maybe when time that you and Fez talk about it, might be the perfect time to bet that under in the win total. Let's move on to the NFC South. And you have the Bucs at 7.5, the Panthers at 5.5. The Falcons pretty hyped up at 9.5, and the Saints at 7.5. What do you have for the NFC South?
I think the one that jumps out to me there is probably the Falcons at 9.5. You know, that still seems a little bit rich. Now, I understand that they should get much better quarterback play, but, you know, they also have coaching changes and other stuff going on, you know, with that franchise. And to think that they're going to get to 10 wins, I mean, they might get to 10 wins, Kiev. They might. But I think it's more likely that they're at 8 or 9 than it is that they're at 10. So if you're going to make the number 9.5, I'm gonna take the under and think the Falcons end up at 8 or 9 wins more likely than they get to 10. 10 would be impressive. I mean, 10. Yeah. Raheem Morris first year there. Mm-hmm. Kirk Cousins is coming off a torn Achilles. I mean, that's asking a lot. They didn't even care with their first round pick to try to be a better team this year. Instead, they took Michael Penix. So give me the Falcons under 9.5.
Well, I agree with you because I fell for that banana in the tailpipe last year with the Falcons, and I even had a great number on them getting it early. But I actually bet the Bucs plus 320 now over at DraftKings and other books to win the division. I'm like, you know, earlier it was at the plus 200 range, maybe 250, and then it just kept getting better and better and better. I'm like, I have to fire on this. They won it last year. They got the complete team that's been together. Baker Mayfield has proven now that he's matured. You know, I was kind of not sure if he's going to be more like a Johnny Football or just kind of grow into more of a, not necessarily a Peyton Manning, but somebody that's mature enough to handle this pressure and handle the media. And to be honest with you, they have a great defense. I like how they're drafting trenches, Ross. They still have Vita Vea just clogging up the run, and you can see a difference in that defense when Vea's out and when he's in, Ross. And guys like Evans, maybe the most underrated receiver over the past 5 years. Goddard's still there. I think the Bucs are a decent bet at plus 320 to win it.
Yeah, I like that bet probably more than the over on their win total. My concern with the Bucs would just be no more Dave Canales and what he did for Baker Mayfield, and just we don't know. We won't know until we see whether or not Baker can continue the way he performed this year without Dave Canales, who's now the head coach for the Carolina Panthers, as I'm sure most of your listeners know.
Yes, correct. And they did replace him with a guy, and his name left my mind, but I know he brought Kentucky.
Liam Cohen.
Yeah, and he did really well with Kentucky back there from a yards per play standpoint and knows some offense. So I'm kind of hoping on that as well, Ross. But that's going to be a fascinating one to watch for sure. How about the NFC East over in your area, your neck of the woods? You got the Eagles at 10.5. You got the Cowboys. I wrote 10 because they're so juiced to the under at minus 180. That's more like a 10 minus 120 to the under there. You know, that is a massive number. And then the Giants 6.5, and then the Commanders 6.5.
So two that jump out to me there. One is the Cowboys under. You know, there's just so much negativity surrounding this team. They didn't really try to get better this offseason. They clearly got worse at left tackle, at center, at running back, arguably much worse. Those are some important positions. Left tackle and center, and then running back. And then as a result, they also lost their depth a little bit. They're a thin team. I think that the Cowboys take a step back, and I'm a little bit intrigued by the Commanders over Kiev. I think Jaden Daniels is the real deal. Every quarterback guru that came on my flagship show, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Phil Simms, Greg Cosell, Chase Daniel, Dan Orlovsky, Sean King, all raved about Jaden Daniels. They all love Jaden Daniels. They talked about Jaden Daniels more and better than they talked about Caleb Williams. And so I'm kind of buying in to Jaden Daniels having a really good first year for the Commanders.
Well, Jaden Daniels certainly had two of the best receivers in college to work with when he tossed those long balls up. So I'm not as high as them, but I am very interested to see if he's going to be able to handle the NFL with this, smaller frame. But he does seem to have the arm and definitely the legs to be able to get out there. So very interested in watching the Commanders there. And, the Eagles and the Cowboys, I would lean Eagles too. The Cowboys lost Biotish, their center, former Badger. Like you said, all the linemen, I think, are very important, and they didn't do anything in the offseason, so forget about them. I like what the Eagles did, getting better coordinators now, and definitely some very good draft picks. Let's move to the NFC West. We have the Cardinals at 6.5, the Rams at 8.5, Seattle Seahawks 7.5, and the Niners at 11.5.
This is an interesting division. I do think the Cardinals are going to take a step up. I don't know if they'll get to 7, but I think that they'll be improved. I'm a big fan of Mike McDonald, the head coach for the Seahawks. I think he's impressive. I wouldn't be surprised if they get to 8 or 9 wins. I think that's probably more likely than 6 or 7. So my favorite bet right now in that division is probably the Seahawks over, for them to stay in the mix and get to 8 or 9 wins and hit the over.
I haven't heard one analyst say anything bad about McDonald, and that worries me a little.
No, he's impressive.
Yeah, it's like every single analyst that I have on or talk to or watch on Twitter or wherever, they seem to really like this guy. So I'll admit I took him under at plus money at 7.5, but it's got me worried when guys like you are so bullish on that higher. I just wonder if it's more of a honeymoon year for him, but. If Geno can keep working like he has been, anything's possible. Let's move on to the AFC. And then this division's rough, man. Rough. I mean, you got the Steelers at 8.5. You got the Browns at 8.5. You got the Ravens now at 10.5. They were 11.5 when it started. And the Bengals at 10.5. I'll just let you know I did take the Bengals under 10.5. I did it for the reasons that when Joe Burrow was healthy playing with them, he was having a kind of a rough year, and now they lost their offensive coordinator. I've never been a big Zach Taylor guy. They lost Mixon. I thought when they gave the ball to Mixon or threw the ball to Mixon multiple times, then they would have their good games, and when Mixon wasn't involved, they would have their bad games. So, I love Joe Burrow, but man, 10.5 in this division is a little too high for me. I took him under.
I think that's a fair bet. This division is rough. I mean, it is really, really rough. I feel like I can see all of them, somewhere between 8 to 11 wins when it all shakes out. I feel like the Ravens might have come back to earth a little bit with losing a couple starting offensive linemen and Patrick Queen and some of the guys that the Ravens lost. They might not be as far ahead of the rest of the pack as they were last year. Steelers will be in the mix. Browns, I think, will be right there in the mix. So I think because I think they're all going to be between 8 to 11 wins, I think the Steelers and Browns are about right at 8.5. And I think I can only lean under for the Ravens and Bengals, and probably more Bengals than Ravens, because the Bengals have their own set of issues going on right now with Trey Hendrickson, Jamar Chase, etc.
T. Higgins, correct. AFC South, Colts 8.5, Texans 9.5, Titans 6.5, Jaguars at 8.5. I'll tell you this about the Colts, man. That is the team that I cannot get a good beat on. I have no idea which direction they're going to go this year. That's the toughest one for me to handicap this year.
Well, I think a lot of it and we know this, depends on the health of Anthony Richardson. I'm bullish on the Colts. I think Shane Steichen, I saw it firsthand up close and personal when he was the OC for the Eagles. I think he's really good. Really good.
Yeah.
And I think you're in a situation there going against the rest of that division is not overly impressive. We'll see if Stroud can build on what he did last year, but I think there's a chance that Richardson, can tear up the league with his physical ability and if they're running him. But I mean, what did he get hurt 3 times in like 4 games last year? It's just hard to. I guess I would lean under. Although even if he does get hurt, they got Flacco as the backup, and Flacco played wonderful last year.
He certainly did. And that's another wild card in the whole situation as well. And you can say the same thing about Mason Rudolph for the Titans. I would wonder if he's going to pick up for Will Levis if Levis gets benched this year. So 2 interesting quarterbacks in this division. I took the Jags to make the playoffs. I just like the new defense coordinator, Ryan Nielsen. He's going to be more aggressive. Now that Lawrence got paid, maybe it works for him. Maybe he's a little bit more motivated. But it's a plus 130 play, and more teams make the playoffs with 7, as it was the last couple of years. Let's move on to the AFC East. Patriots 4.5, Dolphins 9.5, Jets 9.5, and Bills 10.5. Ross, do you know what's crazy about these numbers? Last year, they were the exact same ones that I told you on the show. The numbers were exactly the same, and I can understand that because of Rodgers and everything, but it was just kind of funny when I looked at our notes from last year.
Wow. I didn't know that. That is a cool note. I think the one I like there out of all of them would be the Patriots over 4.5. I know they don't have a great team, but I think Jacoby Brissett is a professional quarterback, and they've been re-signing all these guys like crazy. They like a lot of their players. They like a lot of them, and I think Gerard Mayo might give them just a little bit of a boost here. A fresh start or whatever, however you want to call it. And I think they might get to 5 or 6 wins. It's still not a good year. 5-12, 6-11. I'm not asking a lot of them. I'm just asking them to not be terrible. Give me the Patriots over 4.5. I think Dolphins at 9.5, Jets 9.5, Bills 10.5. That seems about right to me.
Yeah, 4.5 is very low in the NFL. That is a low number. I agree with it. There's no way I'll be taking under 4.5. I think 5 is very achievable for a new team. Kind of, and they got rid of that coach, was more of the grizzled, rough guy. I think players these days might even, adjust to a guy like Mayo a lot quicker and maybe even like him a lot quicker. AFC West, finally, the Raiders 6.5, the Broncos 5.5, the Chargers 8.5, and the Chiefs 11.5. I got one for you here. Let's see if we align.
These numbers seem pretty good to me. I guess if I had to pick one, I'd maybe go Chargers under if I had to pick one. But I kind of like the way Harbaugh goes about it. I think they've got a pretty talented roster, and I do think they'll get the Harbaugh boost. I don't really have a play here. Maybe I would consider Raiders under, just because I do not think they have a good quarterback situation. And it sounds like they might, trade Devontae Adams at some point this year. So the 2 I would look at would be Chargers and Raiders under. Well, I don't think the Broncos are going to be good at all, but they're already starting at 5.5. That's pretty low.
Well, I was going to go a different way. And my statement is, what do you get when you combine a great quarterback, a great coach, and a 4th place schedule? It's over 8.5 wins, I think, for the Chargers. I tell you, maybe I'm too high on Harbaugh, but I think he's one of the best coaches in the last 20 years that we've seen in probably both sports. And that quarterback, he can be fantastic with the right guy leading. I liked how they went trenches themselves. And, man, when you're looking at that at-large schedule, it certainly looks a lot nicer for the Chargers. I believe they get to play Tennessee, at New England, and at Arizona at large. So those are some very
That helps.
Winnable games, yeah, and that's maybe why it was just a lean for you. But I think they can get to 9, and Coach of the Year ain't a bad price at over 10-1 on him himself. And any plays for the NFL before we go? Week 1, did you guys delve into that yet?
We did, yes. Well, Steve did. Steve had some week 1 bet plays that he really liked. I think the numbers are probably evaporated now, though, Kiev. That's his big thing is getting in early and getting the numbers before they move. He actually spent a lot of time the last few weeks on the Even Money Betting podcast picking his games that he likes weeks 2 through 15 because he feels like that's where the value is. He feels like the numbers are all kind of chewed up for week 1 because that's what everybody's looking at. He thinks you can still find value in those other numbers, weeks 2 through 15.
I got the Ravens +3 against the Chiefs. They're higher in my power ratings, even though the Chiefs are the better playoffs team. I just still have the Ravens number 1 in my power ratings. So why is it 3 points? And I think that the Chiefs are probably still partying from their Super Bowl again. And that's just one I grabbed. And it went down, but it kind of went back up to 3, Ross. So that's all I have. But where could our listeners get your great information and media from Ross Tucker?
Yeah, I mean, best thing is just to follow me on social media at Ross Tucker NFL or follow the network at Ross Tucker Pod. Whatever social platform you're on, we're on. A lot of people check us out at youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. But that way, when we post the next Even Money Betting podcast or the Ross Tucker Football podcast, if you're following us on social. And we're the same place Kiev shows are anywhere podcasts can be found.
All right. Well, hey, make sure you guys check out Even Money and all the great shows. Best of luck this season, Ross.
Thank you so much, Kiev, for having me. I appreciate it. Always good to talk with you, man. I look forward to it every year.
A huge thanks to Ross for coming on the show and breaking down some NFL. Make sure you guys tune in Thursday morning. We're going to bring in Kelly Ford to talk some college football, some ACC and Group of 5. Have a great rest of your week and go get some winners.